So I had this dream, and these witches were burned at the stake. And so, first off, I just want to say, like, the whole thing about witches, it was just a derogatory term, a spell to have given a derogatory connotation. Like, so when you hear witch, words are spells. So when you hear witch, you begin to have imagery in your mind of what a witch is. And who did you see? Did you see the cartoon character from Looney Tunes with the bobby pins, the Green Witch? Did you see the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wizard of Oz? Did you see Charmed? Or did you see Amityville? Or is it Amityville? Or it's so many witches, right? And it causes you to think and see images. Certain images will come to your head with this spell, just the simple word of witch. So you'll have thoughts and imagery come to your mind. You'll also have an emotion come to your heart. How do you feel about witches? Do you think they're evil? Do you think they're abominations? Do you think they're despicable? Or do you think they're wonderful? Do you think they're magical? Do you think they're cool? Do you think they're intriguing? So this spell is like just a slur that they created, because witch mean wise woman. And see, a woman back in those days was supposed to be subject to the man, not just her man, but men in general. And she was supposed to subject herself. And she was basically being called a smartass or a wise woman. And this is because she knew how to control herself and things around her using the power of the earth and God. And so all energy and matter would work for her. And so we think about the wise men, we think about witches or warlocks or sorcerers. They had a book. If you notice, they always have a book. But the book that they were reading was the Bible. That hence the book of spells, like Psalms. And they had a staff which connected them to the earth. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. My rod and my staff, they comfort me. The rod or the staff or the wand represents the masculine aspect, which projects. And the staff or the rod, they used the rod for flocking sheep and to grab things. This had the hook, or what you would see developed into a cane. And this was the feminine aspect, hence the Fibonacci at the top. And this was for receiving energy. And this was all in alignment with the earth, using it to stay in constant contact with the earth. But their souls were already on the feet. Their souls were already on the ground, because back then they used to have copper in their sandals, or they wore certain shoes which connected them with the earth. And so they would just need the masculine aspect, the projective aspect, because they were already grounded. And so we talk about witches and the fact that it means wise man or wise woman. And so when Jesus Christ was born, if you notice, they say the three wise men traveled. The three wise men traveled and came and saw Jesus. And then you got to think, why were they called wise men? They were called wise men because they knew about astronomy and astrology, not to mention many other sciences. They knew that Jesus was going to be born. They were what would be considered today as prophets or witches or warlocks or sorcerers or readers or dreamers. Or it's so many different like names depending on what culture you're in. And so they knew Jesus Christ was going to be born because they had already mapped out the planet's alignments, and they knew where he would be born using astronomy. They knew that his soul would incarnate here using astrology, and they knew the position of which he would incarnate using astronomy. They followed the brightest star in the sky. And so they were using astronomy to travel. And they used astrology to find his birthday, to know that his date of birth will be born. And they were prophetic. And so they knew that he was being born. He was going to be born soon. Until they knew the exact day. Because the planets aligned on that day. And so I had this dream. And I drew the image. They were burning witches at the stake. And they weren't just burning like adults. They burned men, women, and children. But mostly women. Women of all ages. And some witches had gotten their powers. Some witches had gotten their powers. They had gotten their powers of astral projection and detachment. So, through trauma, many of these young women that were in this town, they were abused by the men of the town and by the church. And during this abuse, they learned how to dissociate themselves from their pain and feeling all pain. And so those witches who were initiated and unlocked, who had unlocked this gift, they went onto the stake and they didn't feel any pain. They died without feeling pain because they dissociated themselves from their body. And this is seen like in the demonstration of the monk. When the monk this Chinese monk protested, and he meditated on top of fire until he died, until he was burnt alive. But he never moved. He stayed in this meditative pose because he meditated and he left his body. He dissociated from his body. And there's a verse in the Bible that says, do not fear those who could only kill the body, but not the soul. and it's deep. The women of that town, like, they were being accused, like, because these women, like, they weren't all witches. Some of them didn't even have powers. Some of them were just, it was just out of envy and misogyny and for power and control and to instate fear and just a sadistic act in general. And she was on the stake watching because she had this power to dissociate. She spoke a prayer into the universe after they bound her, and she was ready to leave this incarnation and leave this vessel behind. However, it's this younger girl who was innocent, that didn't have any power, that didn't even know what they were talking about. And the whole town directed their anger towards them because there were actually, back then, there was this battle between what they call white magic and black magic. And this is just whether or not they use the energy in what would be deemed a positive or negative way, which is one, to harm others, and one just for protection and manifestation. And this is where you hear, like, if you watch The Craft, you hear them say to the good of all and to the harm of none. Or you hear the main witch say, like, I bind you, Nancy, from doing harm to yourself and doing harm to others. And so she used a different type of magic. And it's just a classification. It's just how you perceive it based on your morals and values. Nothing is inherently bad or evil until you put your consciousness and intention behind it. Then it becomes evil or bad because you are. And it reflects your energy. And it has that's your thought and intention behind it and emotion behind it. But nothing is inherently evil. It's just a tool. And back then, like, it's like witches were like, they were astral projecting and they were killing men in their sleeps. I said in their sleep. They were killing men in their sleep. And this is because they knew things. This wasn't all of the case though. They were like, some women were being killed just because of their ability to prophesy and see things, their ability to know things, like know when someone is lying, know like what someone is feeling or thinking, like before they say it, being able to see something before it happens, and to be able to see the power structure being corrupt and knowing how and who, when and where it all took place. And so this was seen as like a threat to the power structure, which is why witches were initially targeted. But the thing about it is they fought back in the astral realm. And in the astral realm, they would project themselves, like you see characters like the Marigan, or goddesses like the Marigan or Hecate. And they would project their spirit, even Lilith. You see Lilith in the beginning with Eve. They would project their spirit and they would kill in the astral realm. And they caught on to this because some men would wake up and they would like remember seeing certain women in their dreams, and then they would die the next day or that evening, or they would die in their sleep that night. And so it's like, this is where the whole concept of Freddy Krueger comes from, because our Father who art in heaven, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. So that means our Father, and God says, say you have no Father on the earth, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come on earth in the physical 3D realm as it is in heaven, starting in the mind or in the ethers or in the fifth dimension, making its way through the fourth dimension into the third dimension, into present reality where time exists. But in the higher dimensions, time doesn't exist, separation doesn't exist, matter doesn't exist. And so they would manifest these things in higher dimensions because they were high vibrational beings. They had high vibration and a high frequency. And so these were goddesses that would handle everything in the spirit realm, their self. They would literally, like, they would go on that mission. They would go on that mission themselves in the spirit realm. Like, they didn't, some of them called on forces and even conjured spirits, even using animals as familiars. And even they have kitchen witches which use substance and manipulation. But at this stage, they handled everything in the spirit realm. And this is like where the concept of Freddy Krueger comes from, because they would get killed in the astral realm, but they would die in this realm. And this is why people like we can ejaculate, we can have a wet dream. Like, you can literally have, or a woman can have an orgasm and literally have sex with a demon in the astral realm. You could have a dream and simply fantasize about having sex, and you can ejaculate or have an orgasm in the physical realm. Or you can meet a succubus or an incubus in the astral realm and have sex and ejaculate or orgasm in this realm. You just like when you saw Neo go into the Matrix and he was fighting and he said he's dying, and you see him getting like fighting the agent and he's doing this in his sleep. That's because in the astral realm, it's relaying back to his body. Everything is from within. The illusion is that everything is outside of us when it's all inside of us. And so this is how they would kill. See, I didn't really like before like I got initiated into the darkness. Like, I really had to tap into my dark side because I got a lot of masculine energy, and I don't really know, like, I didn't really understand a lot about women and femininity, and that left me really off balance. Like, my big three are fire and air, and so my big six are fire and air. So it's just like I really don't have a lot of earth and water in my chart or feminine energy. And so like at a time, like I didn't even cook. Like I used to think like, nah, I ain't, like my girl gonna cook, like she got it. But then like, my girl leave or she go out of town or we break up, then I'm frying bologna and egg, making egg sandwiches and eating lunchables and hot pockets and pizza rolls, like, you know what I'm saying? So I had to realize, like, I'm just like, wait, this leaves me uneven and off balance. Like I don't even know how to do for myself like something that's cooked, just because I was raised to believe like a woman is supposed to cook, a woman's supposed to clean and do this, and me as a man is supposed to go do it. This leaves us fragmented, halves of a whole, when we're supposed to find that wholeness and unity within ourselves, not look for it outside of us. We're supposed to love ourselves wholly. And like the Gemini is the lovers, the man and the woman, the feminine and the masculine, the negative and the positive, the yin and the yang. We must be whole first. And we look to share that when we find someone to love or share love with. And so I used to think that way. But it's crazy because this is where a lot of our power is at. On average, the average human uses about 10% of his brain. Geniuses use from 13 to 15%. So about 10 to 15% is what humans use when they think. They use 15% of their brain. That leaves another 85% unlocked, which is the subconscious. And so the subconscious is truly ruling your life. And you call it coincidence or even fate because you believe it's unaware. You believe you're unaware to change it. Or you believe you're not capable of changing it because you're unaware. And so that is the feminine aspect. The subconscious is the body and the emotions. This is where all your psychic and spiritual gifts come from. They come from the darkness. They call it a woman's intuition for a reason. And this is where confirmation, this is where we get our gifts and our healing abilities. And this is where we even get emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is a higher form of intelligence than IQ or logic or intellect. And so tapping into the darkness or the divine feminine, that's where we get this power from. But this power has been demonized, like by like characters like Lilith. They say she's a demon or a demon. They say this is bad, like our darkness. When in truth, like that's where the truth is, and that's where the power is. And light even comes from the darkness. The sun is black. The moon is white. In the beginning was the darkness. And God said, let there be light. Everything that they tell us is like really in reverse, which is why mental health is the epidemic, and why having a spiritual awakening feels like a lot of people experience psychosis, because they really have to understand that everything that they've been told is a lie, that they're living a lie, and who they are is not really who they are. What? Deeper than them. We talk about witches. So they knew how to kill in the astral realm. They knew how to manipulate animals in the physical realm. And before we existed as men, like when the first men were created, we were used to fight in their wars. But before because we would fight for our queen or our woman or our mother or our sister or our daughter. But before we existed as men, and there were only women of existence, back then, that's where Pokemon came from. That's when women used to use their familiar to fight. And they would have like these pocket monster battles or Pokemon battles where they would have their familiars fight. Or like what you see today has evolved into like cockfighting. Like where you see two people put pit bulls together or put two birds or like two roosters together, have them pluck them the feathers, or two dogs together and watch one of them like tear the other one up. Back then, like the early witches, like the first women, like during some of the early wars, they would have like these battles that were similar to Pokemon battles because they would make the animals subject to them because God gave us dominion over the animals. And back then, like any animal that existed was potentially a woman's familiar. And she would do battle with her animal. Her animal would do battle, or her familiar would do battle for her. And this was any animal, whether it be, and this has evolved latent into where we see like Ethiopia, where they ride lions or they attack with bees when they defeated the war between them and the Italians, I believe. And we only heard about the war in Haiti because it was so terrible. They said they were stepping off the ships and melting. There were all these unexplained voodoo deaths of possession, of like disintegration and like going crazy and all these other stories. But Haiti and Haitians are known for voodoo. And once they defeated their colonizers, which were the French, they also went up the peninsula and helped the neighboring countries defeat their colonizers using their spiritual power. And this is why it was so crucial to cut off their connection to the spirit realm by having them change their name and forget their language and how to read. And bringing them to a foreign land, detaching them from their environment and their history, cutting them off. This was a spiritual attack to completely sever them from their ancestors and themselves and knowing themselves and down to the earth and their environment. And so everything is like for a spell because everything is just reversed until it's like literally in disarray and unalignment. And so these witches had this power. And another thing they can do is possess. So it's possible for them to, and I've seen this in the Game of Thrones, it's possible for them to actually, because our consciousness is all connected in the collective, which is God, we're all one. So, and not just people, every being, everything that has breath, everything that's living, we're all one. And just like the mycelia network below the earth, above the earth, in the spirit world, there's a link, there's a portal, there's that connection with God. There's a material, like there's a connection here in matter, in the 3D plane, which what we call like mycelia below the earth, and DNA, which are receptors or antennas, and our electromagnetic fields. But in the fifth dimension, we're all one and there is no separation. And so they're able to meditate, leave their state of consciousness, and enter into another being and possess them. But see, this level of witchcraft, you only see shamans practicing it and witch doctors. This isn't a low level like spell that you'll learn like in a book, or it's not even something that's a common practice or taught. This is a technique that's often been hidden. And there's a reason that all the ancient cultures hide knowledge. And that's because what people would do if they got into the wrong hands. There is a lot of forbidden knowledge. And some keep and hinder this knowledge in cults in order to subjugate people or to disempower people. But this knowledge exists, and these codes exist. And you don't need a book. You just need your library card at the Akashic Records, because all knowledge exists. And what you could rent in the Akashic Records is an actual vision or an actual guide and teacher who can show you anything you ever wanted, anything and everything you ever wanted to know. The Akashic Records is the collective consciousness. It's the record or the book of life that is it's the record or the book, it's the book of life, which is in the collective consciousness in the 5D. And it has a record of every lifetime lived or will be lived. And so a person is able to transcend their vessel. Like if you watch the movie, what was that movie? Soul, the movie Soul. 33 on the timer. If you watch the movie Soul, in the movie Soul, like, you remember when they began meditating and they went on that ship in the astral realm? It's like that. They're able to either sleep, which is just an elongated meditation, or sit and meditate, leave their vessel and enter their astral body, and take their astral body and project it into another vessel. And this vessel could be another living vessel. And this is where we hear the instances of possession. And let me tell you, possession is actually real. It's not this hocus pocus stuff. Speaking in tongues is real, and possession is real. It's not this hocus pocus stuff that you see, like, you know, in the club, like, or I say in the club. It's not this hocus pocus stuff that you see, like, on TVs or things that they make fun of. Like, it's like, oh, like, ooh, or it's like, the power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. Like, you have to understand. So you gotta understand. It Possession is real because you have to know your body, and that your body is simply that. Out of the earth you were taken, and into the dust you shall return. Out of the ground you were taken, and to the ground you shall return. This is where we get our matter from. Everything in this 3D plane comes from within the earth. Our food grows up out of the ground, hangs on a tree. We eat it. The animals are earth spirits. They go and eat out of the ground and the fruits of the earth, or they eat each other. And then we eat them. Everything comes from the earth, and it returns to the earth. So possession is something that's very real. It's just the concept. We have a state of unconsciousness. We have a state of subconsciousness. And we have a state of consciousness. And we have a state of superconsciousness, which is the avatar state, or when you see Lucy going 99%. This is when we evolve spiritually. Or you see like in Split where he becomes the beast. We can evolve into a lower nature and tap into our divinity, or at a higher nature and tap into our divinity. It's just where we choose to align, where and what we choose to align with. And so the body is simply a vessel. You can go underneath anesthesia and you can live. You cannot move for 6 months, a year, and you'll be alive. Your body will be alive. Your consciousness is going to be traveling in the astral realm. Even people who go into comas, or if they're medically induced. Or you even hear about monks who go off into the woods and they go into the mountains and meditate for months on end. They're leaving their body and they're going to the astral realm and finding knowledge, coming back to this world and bringing it back to the community in light. If you've ever experienced sleep paralysis, which I used to experience right after my grandma died because she used to constantly visit me. Sleep paralysis, when you return to your body and you can't inhabit it, is occupado. You can't inhabit it. And so the most you can do is come back to your soul, because there's a spirit in your vessel. Your soul returns, which is your consciousness here. And this is the only thing you can do. Until you trigger yourself enough to fight off the spirit and regain control over your vessel. Which is like, if you've ever had if you ever had sleep paralysis, it's petrifying. Especially like if you don't know what's going on, because you'll think like you're dying. Because you're like, I'm here, but I can't move. I can't open my mouth. I could barely blink. I might be able to do that, And that's because the eyes are a part of the brain and the soul. And the windows of the eyes, or the eyes are the windows to the soul. And so the spirit and soul are different. And so you can possess someone. I've experienced sleep paralysis a lot. And possession was something that I had a witch do a spell on me one day. And I never believed. I never believed in this stuff. It was always hocus pocus, mumbo jumbo, like, because I was raised in church and I was a church boy. Like, I was in the choir. I even went to midweek service. And so, like, I knew demons were real. But possession was something I was always skeptical about because I used to watch, like, the church ladies, like, put on a show and call it catching the Holy Ghost. And so I was always skeptical about possession. Like, I just never believed it. And it was something I watched in movies and things that they made fun of. Like, ooh, like I was possessed. And even people like blaming like their actions on possession. The thing about spirits exist on the earth plane. And the veil thins when the moon rises. Because you have the Lord of the day. And you have the Lord of the day. And you have the Lord of the night. Which is the sun and the moon. And this is why you have the spirits that are out, the animals, which are earth spirits. They change. Some are nocturnal, and some only come out in the day. And so the veil thins when the moon is in power. Like, if you ever watched the Avatar, when Zuko says, "You rise with the moon, I rise with the sun." So when the moon rises, it's the winter solstice. When the sun rises, it's the summer solstice. And the sun and the moon are portals. One is the portal for the soul, consciousness, and one is the portal for the spirit, subconsciousness. And these portals open or create another portal during the eclipses. When one is blocking the other, there's another portal that opens or closes, which leads to a gateway. And so possession is very real. I had a witch do a spell on me, and I didn't believe in none of that. And I felt something come over my body. And I never had a seizure before, perfectly healthy. I was about 27. I was perfectly healthy. And I felt the spirit come over me. And I felt it try to take control of my body. And I felt all of my muscles like spaz. And I couldn't control like my body. And someone told me, like, fight it. Like, I had a friend with me because I just went to a concert, and she told me, like, fight it. And so, like, that's the only thing I heard was like holding on to her voice. And so then I was just like, I did it. I fought the spirit. And it only lasted for like 2 minutes. But it was like, it was terrifying because I was just like, losing control is something that's just like, over your body is just something that's like, it's crazy. It makes you feel crazy. And it was something that never happened to me before. And I didn't believe it was possible until it happened. Witches are able to, not even just witches, there's ancient spirits, there's young spirits and newer spirits, or younger spirits. Each time a person has an incarnation, they leave a spirit behind. Just like if you play Mario Kart and you play mirror mode, you can have a race, and how your character goes around the track, it's set for like 4 laps. And this is basically the conscious imprint on the spirit, which is the identity of a being. It's the personalized identity and consciousness of a being during its incarnation on earth. Because once you leave, that person's soul returns to God before its next incarnation. The spirit stays here, and the soul is eternal. And so you could come back as a man, as a woman, as a dog, as a bug, or as anything, any vessel that's required. And once you reach a certain state of mastery, they're even creating new vessels. There's humans creating new vessels to be inhabited, but there's also gods and goddesses that are creating new vessels to be inhabited. And you may see them coming from the ocean floor. And the ocean is just a deeper, denser level. And we can't, a lot of times our bodies are not constructed. We don't even have the technology to reach certain depths of the ocean because of the weight of the water. In between the earth and the sky is just water. Like the air, the only separation between the air and the water, like the waters above, is that the waters above the firmament is just water. It's gas, H2O, hydrogen 2, oxygen 1. And this is where you get Aquarius, or the water bearer, before Pisces, the water, going back into the sun, or the fire, or the conscious, or the star, Aries. And so, as we imagine the earth, we see it as a lot of separation, even the elements, but the elements are all one. And so we see that with ether being a combination of all the elements, or matter. The only separation between the air, the ocean, and the firmaments above is the density, which is why You can breathe in, like breatharians breathe in oxygen and moisture or water from the air. This is why they can geometrically design funnels to pull moisture or water from the air or condensation from the air. It's only separated by density. Water is the most dense form. And that water compounded at the bottom of the ocean, or that water separated at the top of the firmaments, where you see the rivers run as the ocean. And the layers of density is separated through the stratosphere, the atmosphere. So possession is real. Witches were able to leave their body through meditation or in sleep and possess an animal, and it could be any animal they choose. One that resonates on their frequency. In Native American culture, we call these spirit animals. Each of us, like in the Chinese zodiac, there's an animal that we resonate with. These are animals that we're in a vibratory resonance with. And these animals, you may see us resonate with them as familiars in the 3D plane, or in the astral plane, you're able to inhabit these animals because you are on their frequency. You have a higher nature and a lower nature. You have a masculine nature and a feminine nature. The whole thing about it is, are you in tune with it? Are you in alignment with it? And are you even aware of it? In Mortal Kombat, they call this animalities, where they go into their animal state. And so in the spirit world, you could change your vessel into any vessel you want in the spirit realm. But in the astral realm, you're able to project your consciousness into another physical form without you dying, without you passing. And so this is a high level spiritual technique because it first requires you to completely master yourself first. It requires you to master your own body, your own emotions, your own consciousness, your own spirit, your own chakras. It requires you for you to master yourself and be in alignment before you can then leave your vessel and take on another and control it. And another way that this is possible is by using spirits and rituals. Spirits and rituals. Like if you drink spirits, this dilutes the amount of water in your body, which is where the spirit is inhabited. Which is why when you fast, you align your frequency with the spirit. We're 70% water. The earth is 70% water. We're in a vibratory resonance with the earth. 7 to 10. This is the perfect alignment. When you change this ratio, you then become more matter than spirit, or more flesh than spirit. And this is what fasting, the purpose of fasting is for. It's for you to put your energy over your matter in order for you to conquer your flesh and live through your spirit. It's so much you can do in the astral realm. But it takes, like, the key to the spirit world is the feminine. It's feminine energy, it's yin. And this is why this is why women have always been the best readers, because psychic gifts comes from the Holy Spirit. It's feminine energy. If I want to be clairaudient, I have to be able to hear frequencies in other dimensions. Hearing is a receptive energy. It's a feminine energy. If I want to perceive into the future, I would have to see it. Witnessing something is a feminine energy. And so all of the senses and all of these abilities are really from our spiritual body. And the reason that we can't access these gifts is because we're not even in touch with the 3D body. And then there's layers, then the emotional body, the mental body, and then the spiritual body. And in the spiritual body, we have organs. We have spiritual eyes, like the third eye. We have spiritual ears, which make us clairaudient. We have spiritual smell, or spiritual nose, which makes us clairgustient, to taste and smell the tongue. And even speaking in tongues. When we speak in tongues, it's a language. And some of these languages have never even been recorded. They've only been spoken amongst tribes and groups, like storytelling and history. There is no translation. It's all through frequency. And this is because these spirits are much older. And they only speak in these frequencies and these ancient languages. And before then, there's a time where we didn't use language at all. We simply use energy and colors. We translated energy to a person, an image, a color, and a feeling, straight to their consciousness as like a text message. The whole thing about today is we're being domesticated and we're relying on everything outside of us, like technology. Like, we don't even think anymore. If we begin to think about something we don't know, we don't think for long. Hey Siri, hey Google, let me look this up real quick. Let me ask somebody. If we need a calculator, we don't sit and calculate in our mind. We go and pull up our calculator. We don't pull out an abacus. Everything that we do is simply domesticating us to the fact that where we don't even hunt anymore or go look for food. We simply type it in and we order it. And the only thing we got to do is come to the front doorstep. Here, oh, thanks. Have a good one. And so it's domesticated. Technology has domesticated us, like, down to a T, like, that isn't crossed. It's like the phone. That's why I say this technology is their technology. This is their all-seeing eye. This is your all-seeing eye. This is where we're all connected. In the astral plane, in the spiritual world. This is where we're all connected here, in the 3D plane, on the earth plane. And our phone is our subconscious. And this is why they watch our phone. Because through our phone and what we post and listening to our thoughts and watching what comes out of our camera eye and listening to what we say and we speak about in our environment and looking at everything we post on our social medias and our text messages, they can understand our subconscious and how we think. These devices are simply an extension of us, which was a tool, but it's now a cell. It's a cell phone. And this is what we do all day. We stay inside this cell. We stay inside of here all day, scrolling all day, texting, anything we need, any media, anything we want to reach out and get, we stay inside this cell. We want to play a video game, we want to watch a movie, we want to get something to eat, we want to know where to go, we want to type, we don't even write anymore. You want to type, you want to text, you want to read. You're not reading a book, you don't got to read a book. You just look it up on the internet on your phone. Or you just watch this video. And then this is how we communicate to each other now. But yeah. Witches were being killed because slowly, like from the first woman to the division of women to the union and separation of women and to the creation of the first man, and then a population growth of man and woman, and then the unity, and then the fights and the wars against people and society, until it's evolved into, from the matriarch into the patriarch. Men have always been jealous of women. And that's because woman is the first humanoid creation. And everything that we have is in her image. Our nipples, they don't produce milk. We don't have a womb to cleanse our body. We have a prostate. And this is how we develop prostate cancer. Because we don't cleanse ourselves every 30 days. We don't have that extra system to detox. We don't have periods. We have to find another way to detox. Through urine defecation and through the excretion of sweat and breathing. But we don't have an organ in our body that helps us break down the toxins and bleed them out.